All right. Another episode here of Confessions of a Street Broker, and good long time friend of mine and just really stud retail broker, tenant rep, Rob Franks.
Man, glad to be here.
Yeah.
I appreciate you having me.
Rob Franks, JLL managing director. Yep. So anyways, what's cool about this is we've just been friends for about 20 years.
It has been, for sure. It's been a long time.
Yeah.
We both changed a lot over 20 years, but it's been good. Glad to be here, man.
Yeah, absolutely. This is going to be pretty interesting because it's especially in the last couple of weeks, I've just got to learn a lot more about y'all's world of things. And but let's just kind of let's get into something really important here. But like, how do you feel about pulling the number one quarterback out of Texas for the Gators?
You know, I thought we were going to lose him to A&M at the last minute, so that was a big win for us.
Yeah.
We'd agreed. You know, he'd been committed forever and kind of helped put together the class and the whole thing. And then, you know, we thought at the last minute A&M stepped up with some big numbers, and so it was touch and go there, but got it done. And he's a stud.
Yeah.
We're glad to have him. He's a, you know, number one quarterback recruit in the country.
Yeah,
super good kid, great family, checks all the boxes. We've got a returning starter, so I think he's got 1 year to kind of learn and
get
progress, and then after that, it's his.
What drew him to Florida? Do you know?
So he and Napier really hit it off,
Okay.
and so you know, very early on, Napier knew. To be honest, if we didn't land him, I don't think Napier makes it through the year.
Yeah.
So Napier knew that he needed that kind of marquee player. And we lost a couple guys on signing day at the last minute. That, you know, one went to Auburn and what have you. And so nowadays with NIL, it's such a money game. It's, you know, it's hard to keep track of all that. But we lost some guys, but I mean, he stayed committed the entire time. And I think he knew he could kind of help return the program to the prominence that it once was.
Yeah.
And honestly, really should be. I mean, we got all the resources. We've got the facilities now. So, I mean, there's no excuse for us to not have a top-notch program.
Right.
And it all starts there. You know that.
And so did y'all have to make an pretty hefty NIL package for him?
It's a big number.
Yeah. What was it?
I can't disclose that. I wasn't a part of the conversation. I got a third person.
Yeah,
so,
I got you. I got you.
You know, but it's amazing what these kids are getting now.
So I'll tell you what was really cool too is before the college football season started this year, they had the Florida Gators. What was it called? The Swamp.
Swamp Kings.
Swamp Kings.
Yeah,
yes.
Totally.
I watched that and I wanted to run through a brick wall when it was over.
I was a little worried that, you know, they were really going to blast us with Hernandez and, you know, some of the other stuff that happened. And they touched on it, but it was way more of a puff piece than I thought it was going to be going into it. So it was a win for us. I think it showed Florida in a good light.
Yeah.
And, you know, Urban being a part of it, I think it was, hey, I'm only going to do this if we're talking about the positives, not just some of the stuff that went on with the arrests and whatever else. So I think he knew that it had to be or the producers knew that it had to have a certain swing to it.
Yeah.
And it did, and we loved it. And it was a trip down memory lane for me. So I watched it opening night, you know, geeked out. It was fantastic.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
Well, that's what, you know, my whole in-laws, they're all Florida Gators. And so,
I love it.
like, you know, they're all pumped because Florida will be at A&M this year. So
we'll be at Texas this year.
Oh, Texas. I'm sorry. Yeah,
we'll be in
right.
Austin.
Be in Texas. Yeah.
So we've already gotten our hotel room and, you know, trying to figure it out, but we'll be there.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, so on that.
Well, hold on. Before we move on from that, man, I just wanted to bring you a little something.
Oh,
just
my gosh.
A studio gift.
I don't know if I need this. I think the last time we were together and I was drinking this, I made a complete ass of
That's
myself.
all right. That's all right. I'm here for it, man. I wanted to be a part of it again. So,
well, thank
you for having me, man. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. That's badass. So
I appreciate it.
That will get drink for sure. So, so let's start there with the Florida talk. You're from Florida,
born and raised.
So start there.
Yeah, sure. So born and raised in Gainesville.
Yeah.
When you know, when it came time to go to college, I had a scholarship to any state school in Florida. And I remember telling my dad, like, man, I should probably get out of town and go somewhere else and kind of spread my wings. And I said, I don't want to go to Central Florida. It's a commuter school or, any of the directional schools. I'm like, Dad, I want to go look at Florida State. You know, and I remember my dad looking at me and he says, we don't go to Florida State. I'm like, Dad, come on. Like, it'd be fun. I get to go to Tallahassee and live in a dorm and do the whole thing. And he said, no, you won't be welcome back in this house. And he was serious. I said, oh, okay. And so, luckily got into Florida. It was, great experience. Lived at home for a few years and then, graduated from Florida, the company I was working for at the time. I went from working in the store to taking over the marketing department to my senior year in college. I was running their real estate department. So
who is this?
So it was a group called Rhino Video Games.
Okay. Yeah.
So we started with 8 locations when I got there. And by the time we sold to Blockbuster, we had 75.
Okay.
And so just, I'm going to school full time, but I'm basically getting a master's in real estate. Yeah. And it was drinking out of a fire hose. Back then we were working 50 hours a week, driving around the Southeast, trying to do deals and watching classes on your, back then you were taping them and watching them on your TV when you got home. So the grades suffered, but I graduated and great experience. I wouldn't trade that for the world. My first ICSC event was actually in Las Vegas. I was 20 years old and was just like, this is the best business in the world. Yeah. We're in a stretch limousine headed to a party and I'm like, I'm meant to do this for the rest of my life. And so I'm in, fully committed. And so fell in love with the business and fell in love with real estate. And so Blockbuster acquired us. Year after I graduated, they moved Jess and I out here. That was 20 years ago. Yeah. So did Blockbuster for about 3 years. We went from doing 150 stores a year to 0. Pulled the e-brake and it was actually a great experience. Started doing lease renegotiations and downsizes and closures and reloads and the whole thing. And so that last year that I was there, I learned a ton, but we weren't doing new deals. And that was my passion. Yeah. And so got a phone call from FedEx office and they wanted to open up 500 stores. And I thought, let's go. So I left Blockbuster, went to FedEx, was there for 2 years. We had a great run. We got to 500. 2008 hits and kind of the world changes. Yeah. And I thought, I don't want to go through renewals again and closures and all of that. I got to get out of here. So made the jump to JLL. That was 15 years ago. Started as a director of real estate. We were basically an outsourced real estate program for retailers. Okay. So rather than hiring a bunch of guys like me, you could outsource it to us. We would go out and transact on your behalf. So T-Mobile, Bridgestone Firestone, BBVA Compass, we would do their deals in our territory. So did that for a handful of years and JLL came back to us and said, hey, we want to get into retail brokerage as well. And, I never really envisioned myself as a broker. That wasn't my deal. I thought I'm going to continue to learn and earn my stripes. And eventually I'm going to go back and be a chief development officer for somebody. Yeah. And so I thought, all right, I'll get licensed. So I was the first retail broker in Texas, one of the first in the country. And then, started doing it off the side of my desk. So still doing my day job, but doing some brokerage work off to the side and just fell in love with it. The idea that you could kind of eat what you kill and control your own destiny and work with who you want to work with and all of those different things. It was brokerage just, totally changed my life, really changed my mindset.
So they kind of started the JLL retail platform there. Is that
they did? Yeah, 100%. So, and so, again, I think I was broker number 2 on the retail side. Yeah. And now we're up to 240 across the country. Yeah. So awesome. It's crazy how that changes. But, my path was a little bit different into brokerage. A lot of the guys you talk to and honestly, just a lot of people in the business, right? You start when you're 23 years old, fresh out of school, you don't know any better. Yeah. My transition happened at 30. Yeah. And it was like, the great news for me was that I had the T-Mobiles of the world that were going to continue to pay. I had a backstop. Yeah. I knew that I could continue to feed my family and do what I needed to do while making the jump into brokerage. So I kind of had a running start, got into brokerage, fell in love with it. And, it's been, I don't know, probably 13 years now that it's been just tenant rep brokerage. And I went from managing a team of, 12 to 15 people, multiple accounts, doing that day in and day out to really going 1099 and being your own boss and eating what you kill. So it was an unexpected transition, but it couldn't have been better for me.
Well, so that's not the same path, but very similar, right? Like I didn't start brokering until I was 30.
Okay.
I started off when I was 24 managing Class B and C industrial assets. I was doing the property management.
Sure.
Cutting distribution checks to owners, being like, what?
How do I get some of these? Right.
And but at the same time, I had the steel company that I'd bought off my dad, and so I was a tenant,
right?
In an industrial building.
Sure.
I moved when I got a bad lease proposal, so it helped me when I went into the brokerage side of things and gave up all that stuff and just said, hey, look, I'm trying to get you to move your business.
Right.
I've actually done it.
Right.
Like I know what's going to happen. I know I know where all the bodies are buried on this, the tangible and intangible cost of doing it. So it sounds like you took a very, similar path of being on the, you were the client.
That's right.
And so you knew
100%.
You knew what works, what doesn't work, you know what I mean? And so then you can turn around and use that knowledge on the brokerage side and kind of really provide a ton of value for your client because of that. So,
totally. There's nothing that a client's going to go through that I haven't lived firsthand, right? You want to present to the board. You want to create a market plan. You want to formulate strategy and execution. I've done all of that, right? And I think that definitely helps as we're talking to clients. It's like I see it through your eyes, right? And that's why I've always been a tenant rep guy.
Yeah.
We'll do some agency stuff if we're selling a building for a client, but 99% of everything I do is tenant rep work, and it's like that's what I know.
Yeah.
I don't need to have a sign up there getting phone calls from one-off nail salons. I'm not your guy.
Yeah.
But if you want somebody that understands how to market plan an area and go out and execute on that strategy. I've done that for my entire career.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're working with tenants where it's like, hey, we need to roll out X amount of stores in this region, and
totally
Rob's on the street looking at sites, figuring it all out, getting them all together, knowing. What's really fascinating to me is like all the other things that come into play besides the actual piece of real estate.
That's right.
With retail. Like with industrial, it's really form, fit, and function, right? But with retail, I mean, what are all the factors that come into a site? Like,
there's a ton. I mean, we've got a whole team that is just research and GIS functions that all feed what we do, right?
Yeah.
So, we have everything from people that are in the market that, hey, I would love, very opportunistic, right? If you bring me a great site, we'll go do the deal. To others that are coming in it's a clean slate, nothing in town today.
Yeah.
We know that we want to open up, 30 stores over the next 5 years. How do we do that? And so we can sit down with our GIS team and we create competition analytics, store performance analytics, demographics, all of that goes into it. We create an online platform tool for them that they can access at any point in time, pull all the different block groups and, look at competitor sales, look at, store, all of that stuff factors into, hey, where do we want to be? And then we create kind of a market tiered approach, right? So tier 1, tier 2, prioritize all of those trade areas. And now it's on us to go out and source the real estate and execute on those.
Yeah. So there's a level of other similar competitors,
100%.
what their store does in that area.
That's
then
right.
you get down into retail, like, oh, well, you can't turn left into that site.
Oh,
and that,
like,
we used to office in Las Colinas, and there was this restaurant. There's a restaurant site on the, I guess it would be the south side of 114 right there.
Yeah.
And man, it has changed hands. But the ingress and egress on it is just terrible. Like no one can get there.
Yeah. So we call those Statue of Liberty sites.
Okay.
So you can see it, you just can't get to it.
Yeah.
And I mean, nothing can kill a deal faster than that. You pull up and you're like, this thing's landlocked. How do I access this?
Yeah.
So that's a major function of what we do as well is, left in, right in, right out, all these full signal, the whole thing. And depending on what you're doing, it can be significant. Restaurants, especially.
Yeah.
T-Mobile, for instance, who's been a client of mine for 15 years, they want to be top of mind, right? Great visibility in the right area, but that's not as vitally important. Obviously, you'd love to have full signal and full access, but at the end of the day, it's not an impulse purchase for the most part. You know you're going to go get a new cell phone.
Yeah.
And it's okay if it's, not perfect. But a restaurant, that can make or break a site in a heartbeat.
Yeah. Well, and, this isn't as critical as a restaurant site, but we were looking at this big portfolio of properties. And when I got the portfolio, there was a set of assets that are on I-30 that I was like, man, I've always seen these buildings and I've always loved them. I just didn't know who owned them.
Right.
And they were in this portfolio. So like we go site tour every building and go walk it. And every, there's like 6 multi-tenant complexes.
Right.
And we get to this one, the one I'm most excited about, and getting to it was a nightmare. Right. I was like, this is going to be a total whip.
Dead in the water.
Like honestly, what I thought would be the most exciting thing about the portfolio was the least exciting thing. It was one of the biggest things that killed it for me. So, I don't know. It was just fascinating to me, this restaurant. I mean, it's like, I remember we would go eat there and this guy had a barbecue restaurant there and it was great. And I was just like, man, you ain't gonna make it, bro.
Right.
Like, you're just not gonna make it.
At the end of the day, Dallas has so many options for food and beverage, right? I joke we don't have, mountains and streams and rivers and all of that stuff. We just eat and drink our way through our good times. And, that's what we do for recreation, right? Yeah. It's how many times have we been out to dinner? How many times have we been out, with the wives and bouncing around Legacy or whatever it may be? It's like, that's your enjoyment. We're not hooking up to go hike or to go fly fishing or whatever. And it's like, food and beverage is a way of life here.
Yeah.
And, you look at some of our store sales and people from outside the market are blown away that you get the volumes out of these facilities that we do. And it's like, I don't know about you guys, but we go out to eat or get takeout, probably 3 to 4 days a week. And there's a lot of places in the country that's just not the way of life.
We were talking about this the other day. It's like when we grew up, we never went out to eat.
No. And if you did, you went to the Olive Garden.
You went to Olive Garden or Chili's.
Yeah.
And Steak and Ale was...
That was my high school graduation. We celebrated
something very special had happened.
Yeah, with the salad bar.
You could get up and go to a salad bar.
But without a doubt, it's like, we were not... my kids are, every night it's like, hey, where are we going for dinner? Or are you bringing home sushi?
Yeah.
It's like, we didn't have that conversation growing up.
I didn't even have sushi till I was in my 20s.
Yeah. No, my kids love it.
Yeah, I mean,
we have it at least once a week.
Well, I mean, why not? It's readily available. I don't. Do y'all go to Sushi Bene?
We do not. We've been there, but
I like that place a lot.
Yeah, we're fans of Koshi.
Where's Koshi?
So that's Stonebrook and 380.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've been there too.
Mm-hmm. It's very good.
Yeah, it's not that much further, but Sushi Bene is like literally you could walk there from our house.
Stumble home from there.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
So, so on the retail side of things, like when you're trying to acquire, like a new tenant, like what's your cold call process? You're looking for the director of real estate, and then what from there? Like,
we've, I'm at the point in my career that I just don't cold call a ton.
Yeah.
So much of what I do is relationship based.
Yeah.
It's, my contact at X company has left and has gone to Y company.
Yeah.
And I'm going to follow them there for that business. Or, Y company is growing in Florida, doesn't have any outposts in Texas.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that our Florida guys are working with them. How can I get in front of that business?
Yeah.
But, it can be a challenge picking up the phone and trying to get the director of real estate and, hey, I'm in Dallas. I want to do your work.
Yeah.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
Thanks for calling.
Yeah.
So does everybody else.
Yeah.
And so it's one of those, we do a lot of, prospecting at the ICSC event that you were just at, or through local business journals, trying to find people that are not in the market yet.
Yeah.
Dallas is one of the most competitive real estate markets anywhere in the country in terms of quality talent on the brokerage side. It's not even close.
Dallas is like the NFL. I think you have Manhattan and then you have Dallas.
That's right. And, you go to Houston, there might be 12 retail tenant rep brokers that are good at what they do.
Yeah.
You come here, there's 70 of us.
Yeah.
That are all good at what we do.
Yeah.
And so if somebody's already in the market, chances of you getting that business are probably pretty slim unless some change has occurred. And so for us, it's how do we identify those concepts before they get here? And then how do we stay close to our existing clients so that we can leverage those relationships in the future?
Yeah. No, and so as your real estate directors move around, right, that's probably pretty common.
It is.
In your deal. I guess a lot of times when those guys move around, they probably move with the intent of, hey, I'm bringing my guys with me that 100%. I work with. Like, totally. If you have some exclusive, this probably won't work, you know, That's or right. we've got to like get that to burn off or whatever.
Totally. And most companies want to empower their local reps to pick their guys.
Yeah.
Otherwise, if you're forcing your local real estate manager to work with somebody, then you've got to live with those results.
Yeah.
If that real estate manager is picking their own people, you got to produce. Right now, it's on the real estate manager to make sure that partnership is right.
Well, I always like asking this. Did you ever have just a very awkward cold call with somebody? Like, what's the most awkward one or worst one? Or just
So I'll share a story. It's not a cold call, but it is awkward in nature. So we had a client we had a lot of success with, did a lot of deals for them.
Mm-hmm.
They get a new real estate manager that comes in. This is all kind of during COVID. So everything's still remote.
Yeah.
Still on Zoom, the whole thing. And I get a phone call from this guy and he says, hey, do you remember me? I said, no. He said, well, you interviewed me about 6 years ago to be a junior broker and you didn't hire me. I said, okay. He said, I think you made a bad decision. He said, we're going to make a change in our representation. And I said, you got to be kidding me. I said, you've been holding on to this for 6 years, and now you're going to bring it up? Like, this is what you're doing? He's like, yeah, we're making a change. And so they went with a different firm. And I thought, holy cow.
Wow.
So that was the first that had ever happened to me. And honestly, that's the only account I've ever been fired from. Now, we've lost business or whatever, but that's the only account that I've ever, actually been terminated. And we had a good run. We did a bunch of deals for them, and I wish him great success. He only lasted about 6 months, and then he got fired. Yeah. So actually, I made the right decision by not hiring him. But that's probably my most awkward, business phone call. And I didn't even recognize the guy. I had no idea who he was.
Yeah.
It was like, obviously, you didn't make an impression.
Obviously, you never got into brokerage.
Obviously. Yeah.
No one wanted you in brokerage.
Right.
Or you quit trying to be in brokerage because you ended up on the other side of the table,
Yeah. And now he's on the landlord side. So
whatever. Probably where he's supposed to be.
That's right. Yeah. I don't know that he has it.
You didn't hire me.
You didn't hire me.
What a whiner.
Gosh.
Oh, it's funny. Well, so you're the managing director, but do you really run a bunch of guys, or is this kind of you and your team? Like,
sure. Yeah. So, Clay Smith ran our group for a long time. He's a legend in retail real estate in Dallas. He passed away 5 years ago.
Okay.
And so his business partner, Mark Newman, took over. He really leads the team.
Yeah.
For me, I've got two priorities in my life, and it's my family first, and then making money and closing deals.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't fall in one of those two buckets, I gotta be honest, I'm not interested.
Yeah.
I just don't have time for that.
Yeah.
Right. I've got two little girls that are 13 and 10. And, I owe everything to, ensuring that they grow up the right way, and dad's as present as he can be. And so the idea of, managing HR and accounting and all of those things just never really appealed to me. Now, what I do love is helping people grow in the business and progress their careers and what have you. Well, I can do that without having to wear that true operational hat day in and day out. So Mark has done a fantastic job at that. He's a great resource for me.
Yeah.
But the good news is if I need something, I get to call him instead of having to go fight for it myself. So he's been fantastic. I've got a small team, 2 juniors that work with me, and then we've got support staff that keeps us operational. So it's great.
So you got Jillian, right? And then who's your other junior?
So we got Walker Dias,
okay,
who is, he's kind of taking on wings and doing his thing now. And he supports both Mark Newman and myself, and does a fantastic job. So he's a great kid. So he's getting close to upper 20s, almost 30 now, and has really started to build his business. He's got some accounts on his own and has done a wonderful job. So he's a great asset for us.
Yeah.
And then, Jillian, fresh out of school, rock star.
She's a trip, man. I really enjoyed talking to her.
She's a badass.
You got a good one there.
I did. No, she's been with us for just under a year now, and just does an amazing job. She's on every deal that I'm on, and on every email, every phone call. And so she's drinking from a fire hose, but she's a rock star.
Yeah.
We're glad to have her.
Yeah. She was awesome. I got to meet her at ICSC and yuck it up with her. And then her and Will are from the same part of the world, and so they just they went directly into Northeast talk.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, sounds good. Sounds good. My Florida Gators just lost to her Loyola lacrosse team on Saturday. She flew back for that game.
Oh, okay.
So I actually had to wear a sweatshirt today in the office.
Oh, that's funny.
I've paid my debt. But no, she's great. We're glad to have her.
That's awesome. Yeah. No, well, let's talk about ICSC because that was very interesting to me.
Totally.
We've started to get into just funding some pref and stuff like that, pref equity for some retail developers and stuff like that, and that was the first time I've ever been to any ICSC event, and man, just the organization of it was like it seems a very efficient event, and
100%.
that was. I mean, you showed me your calendar, and it was back every 30 minutes, back to back. So the benefit of that seems like on the retail side is that you can get so many in-person meetings with decision makers on a regular basis. Now, do you go to all the shows
No, so I do Texas, and then we've got one in Las Vegas in May.
Yeah.
And then I used to do New York every year, but I don't do that as much anymore. But so Vegas is our biggest one. We'll have 30,000 people there.
Yeah.
And then Texas or New York is next at probably, 10,000 people. And then Texas is probably third at, 3,500 or whatever the number may be. But Texas is a great show for us. We know a ton of people on the floor.
Yeah.
It's nowadays it starts on Tuesday, right? With happy hour. I was at your happy hour Tuesday night. To Wednesday, we've got clients in town, so we're touring. We've got dinner Wednesday night, the whole thing. And then, all day Thursday, we've got meetings starting at 8:30, going till 5:30 every half hour, just back to back.
Yeah.
And then it's happy hours and dinners and party and the whole thing. And then Friday, the show's open from, 9 until noon. And it's good. It's kind of a ghost town on Friday, but actually it's great. Nobody's there. So the folks that are there are great connections. Everybody's much more relaxed. You're walking around bumping into people and having very meaningful conversations. So it's a great event for us.
Yeah.
Vegas is fantastic as well, but it's so big. Things kind of get lost. Everybody's running 100 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Whereas Texas, those are our people. Those are our deals.
Yeah.
And we get a lot done. It's a great show.
Yeah, no, it was really interesting, man. And it was funny. I did hear someone say, I don't know if maybe you said this, but it was like if all the deals got done that were talked about at ICSC, lane would be $200 a foot.
For sure. Yeah, no, that's fitting.
It was just awesome, man, because there's nothing like that for industrial, nor could there be, I don't think, because you don't have a tenant that's rolling out that many sites, right?
Sure.
It's totally different train of thought. But,
It sounds like a next business venture for you.
I don't want anything else in my life. There would be a way to do something, but I just,
it would just be a bunch of brokers sitting around.
It'd be a bunch of
together.
brokers getting drunk, and it's the industrial's so fractured, right? It's just it's there's never really an industrial tenant does one deal in a market, not 50.
Right.
So there's just I don't think there'd be a lot of benefit to it, except for the getting drunk part.
You know what, man? To be honest, that and outside of that component of it, but just the socialization, how many relationships have you strengthened with that dynamic? How many, whether it's clients or other brokers in the market or whatever it may be, those after hours events mean so much in creating that new dynamic. We had a new client that was at the show with us, and we had a great, good progress on the floor, but, and we toured with them the day before, but honestly, we probably got stronger after hours, just spending time with them and them realizing that, we're real people, and it's not just it's not transactional based.
Right.
We want this to be a relationship that's going to grow and evolve over time and get stronger. So, that's such a key component of what we do, without a doubt.
Well, I think for us, getting into this pref world of stuff and, funding some of these developers, I think it's something we'll be at for the most part. And, go to, I wasn't really set up to go to all the happy hours and all that stuff. And, we're getting there, right? We're starting our fun things for that. So like when that's done, it's like, hey, we're ready to deploy,
Right.
and we can do some actionable things. But I think if you actually go into ICSC with a decent business plan and you execute on about half of it, you'll probably actually walk out of there with some real live stuff to work on.
100%.
And I was just, it was just interesting, man. I've always been in just one realm of commercial real estate, and there's just so many other,
without a doubt,
so many other avenues of it. And there's so much to learn. And it's so cool to see how so many other people make money with real estate and doing certain, just all parts of it. And that was just really cool seeing all that. And we really enjoyed it. And you introduced us to some really cool people, and we met some really cool people. And I don't know, I'll probably try to go to the Vegas one this year too.
Let me know what I can do to help. And I'm happy to help kind of walk you through the schedule and what to expect, and any connections I can introduce you to, I'm happy to. But, there's certain things, we had a guy that walked up to our booth at the end of the day, guy I've known for a long time. And he says, Rob, I've got a site that I think one of your clients would be interested in. I look at it, makes all the sense in the world. I call the client, he's across the show. I'm like, hey, I need you at my booth. Yeah. He comes over there. We introduce the two of them. We talk out deal terms. We just sent the LOI yesterday. And not that conversation couldn't have happened elsewhere. Yeah. But the fact that we had it in person, they now both have met each other face to face. We agreed to terms sitting on the floor of the show. Yeah. Right. Like it's fantastic. We just condensed a month of conversations into 35 minutes. Yeah. And we'll have that, I'm confident we'll have that letter of intent signed, in a week, maybe a week and a half. And that's a deal we'll make. Yeah. No, that's stuff. I mean, that pays for the whole thing. There you go. That makes it all worth it. Yeah. Right. No, that's, and what's cool too is what's really cool about like looking at the brokerage side of things on that is like, both of those guys are guys that you'll probably transact with multiple times. 100%. Because that guy needs sites. This guy has sites. That's right. He's always going to come to you because you're the tenant rep. That's right. Hey, man, I got this new one coming online. This would be perfect for XYZ tenant that I know you work with. And, that's right. And there you go, And so the fact that y'all can just sit down and knock it out is, I mean, it's very impressive. Like, I was like, man, this is, I've just kind of driven around my dirty streets of Brook Hollow my whole life, but this has all been going on outside of here. So we really enjoyed it. It was really cool. So I think we'll be there because we will grow into that space just on the equity provider side and be a resource for, some of those up and coming developers. And so I think we'll be there on a consistent basis. So, well, one thing I like to always kind of ask really successful brokers are like, kind of what are the things you do on the regular that like, I got to do this? Like these are like the three things I do that like, sure, I need to win. So for me, it's setting goals and then figuring out, what are the steps to get there and then executing on those. Right. So what are my, at the end of the year, I do a look back. Yeah. Where did all my money come from last year? Yeah. What's the breakdown, right? Yeah. So I look at, not only what revenue did I earn per client, but then what's that total percentage of my revenue? Yeah. So if a client is 30% of my revenue, but they're taking up 50% of my time, that's a problem. Yeah. I need to recalibrate. I need to figure out that relationship dynamic. Alternatively, if it's 30% of my revenue and it's only 5% of my time, shame on me. I need to figure out that dynamic as well because that's a client that I'm not servicing appropriately. Yeah. So I always do a look back on last year. How did I do? How does it stack up? What could I have done better? Who were my most important clients? Who were my least valuable clients? Trim the fat sometimes, right? If you've got a client who just historically year over year has not been producing for you and has taken up your time, it's probably time to have a hard conversation. Yeah. Alternatively, where can I grow that business? Maybe they're dormant because I'm not giving them enough attention and we're not focused on their growth. Okay, well, shame on me. I need to figure that piece out. Yeah. So to me, that look back is key. And then what do I want to do next year? How do I hit those numbers? What of those revenue numbers can I duplicate? What can I grow? What's going to decrease because we've now executed on their build strategy and they're going to go dormant for a while. Yeah. So in my mind, it's trying to figure out the revenue component of what we've done and what we're going to do, what we're forecasting, and then how do we break that down? Where do I need to spend more time or less time? And then, kind of continuing to look back at that throughout the year. We've got our WIP reports that we're tracking monthly.
Yeah.
What deals are flowing? When do we expect those to close? All of those things. And, you try not to, in a perfect world, it's a steady state. That's not the way real estate works. You got some where you sign 5 leases in a month and others that you sign 1.
Yeah.
So, how do you get that as even keel as you can across the board and continue to push those? And then also creating a target list. What are the clients that you want to go after?
Yeah.
How do we prioritize those and make sure we're chasing them appropriately as their expansion continues? So those are 2 big things. For me, it's, man, I've also got to get in the gym. I got to get my head right. I'm just not the same person if I'm not doing something physically to, keep myself sharp. And so, I would love to be the guy that woke up at 4:00 in the morning and went and cold plunged every day and then, read on the treadmill and then worked out. I'm not that guy. I'm either in the office at, 6:30 or 7, or I'm with the kids and I get to drop them off at school and take them to Starbucks and then, take them to school and then head to the office at 9:00. So for me, it's either, get down there early and get going, or it's spend time with family and, be able to enjoy that morning and then show up a little bit later when traffic dies down. But at some point in time during the day, you got to figure out whether that's at lunch or, early morning or at night when you get home. But being able to kind of free your mind is a great way for me to wind it down. Otherwise, it's hard for me to turn it off, in all honesty. I could work until 1:00 in the morning, every day if possible. Jess was out of town, I don't know, a year ago.
Yeah.
And she was gone with the girls for probably 3 days, which rarely happens at my house. And I looked back and I'm like, holy cow, like I worked until 1:00 in the morning every single night.
Yeah.
But I talked to her, I'm like, hey, do you know how much money we made this week?
Yeah. No,
to have uninterrupted focus on just what we do.
That's why you young guys that listen to this, that don't have kids and a wife, you should be working 80 to 90 hours a week.
I love what I do.
Yeah.
It's signing a lease to me. I mean, I'm in the truck and I get an email that X deal just closed, and it's like, heck yeah, and whether it's a 3,000 square foot tenant or a 30,000 square foot tenant, it's like, man, you feel like you got to check something off your list.
Yeah.
And keep it going. And, speaking of that, the other thing is, kind of prioritizing your daily tasks. So I do always try to start off the day with what do I want to get accomplished this day? And nothing feels better than striking through that when it's done. And moving that off your plate. I try to keep the emails down in my inbox. If I've got, I can't sleep. If I've got more than 35 emails, I haven't closed out my day. And, I'll crack open the laptop at 10:00 when the kids are in bed and Jess is in bed. And, I've got to clean the slate to something that's manageable for me, or else I'm dreaming about it while I'm sleeping.
Yeah. No, it's, I used to wake up real early and all that stuff and do all that, but I'm kind of, I'd say the past 3 months I've been like, I'm just going to sleep until I get up.
Right.
And if I get up at 5 and start working, I'll start working.
Right.
If I get up at 6:30, then, I'll take the kids to school or something like that too. I mean, I'm looking at my son. I'm like, well, this is the last semester I'm taking you to school because you'll have a driver's license next time. So like, I got to get into this. So the physical side of things too is pretty cool. Me and my son started jujitsu, and man, it's been nice. You just like, I don't have my phone, and it's just like, I get to maybe physically take out my aggressions on the people that drove me nuts for the day.
I love it.
Maybe I get my ass whipped. It's very 50-50 in there.
But it's going to be good either way.
Yeah. So that's been a lot of fun, but very similar. Like I'm at that point where I just want to take my kids and all that stuff. But like there's been times when Tammany will go out of town with the kids or something, and it's like, did I just work? Like
100%.
Like Saturday night, I ended up just by myself, and I was like, I went to bed at like 10 and I woke up at 5 the next morning on Sunday, and I worked till like 1. And it was like, I was like just cranking stuff out.
Totally.
And, but I'm pretty obsessed with it too, from that standpoint, but I enjoy what I do too, and you have
That's the key.
If you're not fired, if you're not fired with enthusiasm about it, you should probably be fired with enthusiasm. So
it's true. It's true.
But look, I always like to know this too. Is there any book you read that really really changed you a lot?
So most recently, I finished I don't know, a couple months ago, book called The Surrender Experiment.
Yeah.
And the idea is kind of, in his eyes, it's a spirit, right? In our eyes, it's God. But at the end of the day, the message is the same. It's kind of the, giving it up to the higher power of putting you in the right places at the right time and surrendering to what the experience is in front of you.
Yeah.
Instead of constantly listening to the voice in your head that maybe tells you can't do this, or you shouldn't be, or you said the wrong thing, or whatever it may be. Just realizing that the universe is going to set you up for success if you live the right way and do the right things. And I didn't realize when I bought the book, but it's a guy who was in Gainesville, Florida, actually.
Oh, okay.
And ended up starting multiple companies. And one of them he sold for over $1 billion.
Wow.
And, he's just a hippie that wore flip-flops and kind of surrendered himself to the experiment. And it was a great book. I really enjoyed that. So that was my most recent one. I'm reading, 10 times is easier than 2 times right now.
Yeah.
So I'm only 2 chapters into that one. But, it's for a long time, I didn't read many books. I would listen to them and what have you. And I've tried to make that part of my routine at night instead of sitting there staring at your phone, which could take you down a rabbit hole. It's, whatever, 20 minutes of reading before bed really kind of relaxes my mind and helps me fall asleep. So books have become more of a thing. Unreasonable Hospitality is one that I just finished, and I enjoyed that.
One of our equity partners told us about that, and Will's been reading it.
It's a great book. It's fantastic. It's kind of over-delivering to a client's expectation and what that can mean. This is based on, restaurants, and 11 Madison Park is the restaurant that they launched, and, just great stories in there with Danny Meyer, restaurateur out of New York City. And so anyways, that was a fantastic book as well.
Yeah, no, that's what we were down in San Antonio looking at one of our assets, and like Will kind of literally pulled something from that book. It's like, hey, this guy has this door that's been messed up. It's really his responsibility, but let's just fix it.
Right.
And so I was like, yeah, just fix it. Like, we're fixing to come up on a renewal with them. Like,
sure.
So, but
it's amazing how far that stuff takes you.
Yeah.
Whether it's little things, your client's flying in late at night and you send your car to go pick them up, and they're not having to worry about Ubers at 1 o'clock in the morning, or, you're out to dinner with clients and, you've got everything's already taken care of and, it's all handled, or, that stuff goes a long way to me. Knowing your client's spouse's name and their kids' names and how old they are and, when your client's birthday is and all of that stuff, it's truly creating that relationship dynamic that is more than just a transaction.
Well, it's effort.
People love that.
That takes effort, you know, and people appreciate effort.
Yeah.
So
you can go to my contacts and click on a client. In the notes section is all of those things.
Yeah.
And, it's like that, it shows that you care versus just, hey, when do we close our next transaction and move on down the road?
All right. Well, what's something no one knows about you? Or most people don't know about you? What's something unique about you that most people don't know?
I would say I'm an Eagle Scout. There's one.
Okay. I did not know that.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I came up in scouting and had great experiences, and we traveled a ton and camped every month and just had a blast. And so that was a great part of, my childhood growing up.
Yeah.
Got my Eagle Scout. That's still on my resume today.
Sure. It's a big accomplishment.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. As a 16, 17-year-old kid. And, it's funny because I look back at it now and, I was just having fun along the way. It just got to check, milestones as we went and ended up finishing it. But it's almost like getting a degree. It's not, it just shows that you stuck with something all the way through the finish, especially when you're young and still developing. Yeah. And so we had great experiences and, I learned so much from that, whether it was, we would have to shop for ourselves as our own, little patrol and we had to feed ourselves and cook our own meals and clean our own dishes. And, mom and dad weren't there to watch over it. You were on your own. And so I knew how to, by 12, I knew how to pack. I knew how to cook. I knew how to clean. Yeah. I knew, we would have a budget going into the weekend. And if you spent it all on Little Debbie's, well, you're probably going to be pretty hungry come Saturday afternoon. So by the time I got to college, it was like, you already had that down. You knew how to manage at least somewhat manage
Sure.
your house, if you will. So anyways, that was a fun experience that I would assume a lot of people wouldn't know about.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
And so when I had my girls, it was how do I keep that going in some stretch? So we did Indian guides with both girls.
Yeah.
And so, that was kindergarten through 5th grade. We go on 4 camps a year, and we go to YMCA camps. So it's not really camping. We're in a cabin with bunk beds.
That's what women need anyways.
But we have a blast. Mia graduated out after 5th grade, and we look back. She'd been to 36 campouts with just me and her.
That's
never
awesome.
missed one from the time kindergarten through 5th. And Vera will graduate out this year, and it'll be almost the same number for her. So, great experiences and awesome time with me and the kids.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, one other fun fact about you is you own donkeys.
I do own donkeys. There you go. That's a good fun fact that most people don't know. Yeah.
Get that good ag exemption going.
That they are worth their weight in gold, I assure you. So we love our donks.
Well, let's kind of wrap this up. What's your thoughts on the retail market? It seems like it's really, for a long, for the past couple of years, the Amazon effect was always out there.
Sure.
People were talking about that, but now all of a sudden, I feel like retail's like kind of leading the charge on asset class.
We are, and I think at the end of the day, people still want an experience, whether that's retail shopping, whether that's entertainment, whether that's food and beverage, what have you. I'll tell you, we are very blessed to be in Dallas, right?
Yeah.
All of us are.
Yeah.
There's nowhere else in the country I would rather be, especially from a business standpoint, because other places retail wise felt a significant impact during COVID, post COVID, and candidly, we really didn't. I mean, obviously, it hurt during the moment of COVID, but we came out of that very quickly compared to other marketplaces. And I think right now in Dallas, we have way more client demand than we have spaces to put them in. If I had vacancies, I could, we could fill almost any of them in quality space. Yeah. We have that many tenants still continuing to grow. So there's a big need to continue that growth pattern. Texas is a place people want to continue to expand. Yeah. The economics are here. The population continues to grow. The jobs are here. It just makes all the sense in the world that Dallas, you're either growing here already or it's on your growth plan, one of the two.
Yeah.
And, so for us, it's trying to be in front of that and continue to grow. But I would tell you, I don't see any sort of slowdown. Obviously new development has definitely taken a hit with interest rates the way that they are.
Sure.
But if you've got a good site, you've got good tenants, you're going to be able to figure that out.
Yeah.
And so, even with the current market conditions, it's very rare that we're losing a deal for something. We've got a pharmacy client that, we're doing build-to-suits with throughout Dallas, and the numbers have gotten harder to make work, but the tenant's stepping up. They have to continue growing.
Yeah.
They know there are holes in the market, and they've just got to find a way to make those numbers work. So we're doing rent numbers now that would have been completely out of touch with Dallas 5 years ago are now on the table. And it's like, sure, does it hurt a little bit? Yes.
Yeah.
But are your sales still going to be there? And are these markets that you have to compete in? Your competitor's already there. You've got to grow, or competitor's not there. Let's try to get in front of it. You're going to find a way to make those make sense.
Yeah. No, that's, I don't know. Retail's become a fascinating thing we've been learning about. And, you've scared the death out of us on some things too. So, but
that was only one. That was only one.
No,
but that was the worst case scenario. I just wanted to make sure you knew what the worst case scenario was.
Now we're learning. So,
but I've been in your ear about retail for 20 years now.
Oh yeah,
and I'm glad you're jumping in.
Yeah,
it's great.
It's interesting, man. We really enjoy it. What's great about it is the data's there.
Right.
Like, man, industrial's great. You can make there's a lot of arbitrage to be made, because the data isn't there. The data is there for retail, so that kind of compresses margins a little bit. But at the end of the day, you can scale. So that's what was really cool about. That was kind of a big takeaway of mine from ICSC. I was like, okay, well, everybody knows what everybody's doing here, so everybody knows the math. But at the end of the day, everybody's doing so much more volume. So that was interesting about it. So, well. Well, man, that's all I got. This was really fun. We'll have you on again. And
man, I appreciate you letting an alphabet boy on the
podcast. You give me some shit about that.
We get blasted every show at some point in time. So I'm glad to be on here.
Yeah, I gotta haze the crews. So
no, it's good.
No,
I appreciate it.
No, we got a property listed with you guys right now. So Bo and Caleb are doing a phenomenal job. Brought us a great asset. And,
great guys.
And they brought us a deal. We closed it in 17 days, man. It was a whirlwind, but we got it done. And so they're out trying to get it leased for us. And
I love it.
So
you're doing great things, man. I'm proud of you.
Yeah, thank you.
You've done a great job. You were obviously a great broker, and now you're turned into a heck of a developer and everything else. So This side is aggravating as the other. So if it were easy, everybody'd do it, right?
That's right. They would.
Yeah.
So
I appreciate it.
Well, cool, man. Well, thanks. We'll have you back.
You got it, buddy.
See ya.